WestJet says to expect more disruptions despite ending a recent 48-hour strike by its mechanics. Here's our travel expert, Claire Newell, who joins us this morning with more on this. Claire, good morning. The strike saw chaos at Canadian airports, of course, over the long weekend. And that chaos is continuing as returning to business as usual is taking a little time.
It is. What a weekend for travelers. I just feel for it, for so many people. Talking about 1,100 flights that were canceled. And for every day of strike, kind of the ratio is 1 day of recovery. So from Thursday to Sunday, we're talking about Monday to Thursday. Probably by Friday, things should be back to normal.
All right. Okay. So, Claire, for anyone stranded right now or had their flight canceled, what should they know? And are there any lessons for travelers from this?
Well, for anyone who is having their flight still affected, and we will see some more cancellations and delays, they need to go to the website, WestJet.com. The airline does have still in place flexible cancellation and change policies. The takeaway on this is that the Air Passenger Bill of Rights, just because I think people need to know their rights moving forward. So if this type of thing happens again, labor disruptions within the airline are not covered. They're considered outside of the airline's control, which means that their responsibility is to accommodate you on another airline or their own at a later date, if they can. And over the weekend, that was very tough. It was a long weekend, or they give you a full refund. So you have two choices. You can get travel insurance that covers you for this type of disruption. So any of the expenses that you would have had to incur, including accommodation, meals, transportation, including new flights, would have been covered, or you can fight. And if you fight, it's cumbersome. You need to go on and speak to somebody, record the calls, make sure that you let them know if you can see that there's flights available, book those flights, keep all of the receipts, and then go to small claims court. But we're talking about 100,000 people doing that. Most of people are not going to do that kind of cumbersome way.
Now, Claire, I booked on a WestJet flight right after the show for Calgary for the Stampede. What can you tell me about my flight? Do I need to rush to the airport? No. Actually, let me ask you about WestJet and their reputation moving forward, because there were over 100 aircraft parked at numerous airports across the country over the long weekend. And this disruption, will it have any impact, do you think, on the company's reputation and their business moving forward?
Well, 130 aircraft sitting at 13 different airports. It's a huge rebuild getting those planes back into circulation. They have to go through maintenance checks. They had crew all over the place. They had to get that in place. So this is why it takes so long to get them back and to rebuild. And the knee-jerk reaction is, I'm not booking them. But the reality of this is that WestJet flies to destinations, and it's the second largest airline. So they fly to destinations where it might be the only nonstop. So unless you're willing to do a connection, your kind of hands are tied to book WestJet. So, and I did notice that they put out a sale yesterday for 30% off certain flights. So I think they're trying to rebuild as quickly as they can.
Right. Okay. Now, there are other strikes happening in Europe right now. What do travelers need to know if they're headed that way?
Yeah, so strikes are, unfortunately, they happen, and they happen more frequently than people may think. So in Europe alone, I was just going through a number of them. In Italy, on July the 5th, at various airports, there's a nationwide strike happening. In Ireland, their flagship carrier, Aer Lingus, has had strikes. They had one Wednesday last week, Saturday last week, and they have some flights that are affected until July the 7th. And then at Gatwick Airport, if you're flying there, there's a couple of dates in July where airport workers are going to be on strike, July the 12th to 14th, and then again, July the 18th to 21st. So they happen, and they could affect a lot of people that are heading to Europe.
For sure. All right, just finally, Claire, another case of severe turbulence. 40 people this time injured on a recent flight to Uruguay. We were just showing some of the video. Here it is again. One passenger being pulled out of the upright bins there, or the overhead bins. This incident is under investigation. What more can you tell us about this?
Yeah, really scary video that you're showing. Air Europa, there was heavy turbulence, 40 people that were injured. It happened really early on Monday morning. It was a flight that was going from Spain to Uruguay, and it was diverted to Brazil because of this. It's still under investigation, and because it's difficult to forecast certain types of turbulence, it could be a case of clear air turbulence. And we're hearing more and more cases of this. We chatted about another flight that was affected like this. The takeaway, please wear your seatbelt. whenever you're traveling. I mean, 99% of the time, unless you're going to the restroom, that seatbelt should be on. And I see people taking it off. I was just on a flight recently, people taking it off during meal service, taking it off when they're trying to rest. Don't do that. Keep it on whenever you're in your seat.
All right, good advice. Claire, thank you for this update.
Thank you.